This podcast is dedicated to Grant Imahara.
Welcome to Random Fandom, a podcast for the jacks of all trades. Each episode we talk to a different master of their craft.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Hey, dude.
Hey.
So, everybody listening, just in case you were curious, my name is James Wright, and Derek, I'll let you introduce yourself.
My name is Derek Thompson, and we're co-hosting this podcast
It's a good
for
podcast.
a very unique individual, because this will be one of our inaugural episodes,
Right.
podcast. So
Right.
maybe we should say what the mission statement is.
What's our mission statement, Derek? We're interviewing artists of different genres to better inform our own art.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have been on similar paths, and we've jokingly said that if we compared our Venn diagrams, they overlap
Like ridiculously.
completely. Because
Yeah.
yeah,
Like you're
you know,
me in the States and I'm you in
that's
Japan.
right. That's why you have to be in Japan.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
the
there can
balance.
be only one.
In the hemisphere.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's right. But we found that, you and I were very similar minds, and people like Adam Savage and one of our other guests, Ted Haynes, and there's the shirt,
Yeah.
Um,
Savage Industries.
are collectors of skills.
Right.
And that each one we found informs the next. Adam is famous for saying that he learned about welding because he learned how to do pattern making and sewing.
Yes. And
And
that
I
is
thought the same
exactly
thing.
it. Yeah.
yeah,
We both, you and I, wanted to, in the midst of this pandemic, I mean, you and I have known each other for years online and such, but in the midst of this pandemic, I thought we have got like time on our hands, but we don't want our creativity to die.
right.
And what better way to either inspire and or inform both our creative side by interviewing and talking to a bunch of artists, and thereby really kind of like Adam Savage says, Adam's like, I learned to weld because of this, and personally I had to learn fabric because I had to learn sewing and learning to be a tailor because I was doing fabrication for creatures, and then you have to do all of this stuff, learn it all. How do we do this?
Yep. Whether it's leather working or metalwork or woodworking, and the process of learning each one, because when I was younger, my boss said, "You're a shotgun. You're spraying everywhere. You're just,"
Yeah.
I was interested in this, interested in that. I was all over the place.
That's called ADHD.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And he said, "You need to be a laser." I was a 20-year-old guy. What 20-year-old guy is a laser? Not many. But then later on, Adam said, "Jack of all trades, master of none." But the finish of that phrase is better than one, meaning that all the skills inform the whole.
Yes.
And we found that there are other people like you and I that are like that.
Right.
Yeah.
You and I both do animation. We both
Yep.
draw. We both sculpt,
Yep.
paint, do dabble in. I fabricate. So, and I know you do to some extent. You've made some fantastic things. We're both magicians.
Yep.
We both have studied the martial arts. I've studied Kyokushin and Aikido and Kung Fu since I was about 5. And I know that you have studied ninjutsu, and you, in fact, came here to Japan. And you were here the same time. I've been here in Tokyo for 20 years. I've spent most of my adult life here. And
Yeah, 2003, I was there training with the Grandmaster for 10 days.
Right.
straight, and that was a blast. That was so much fun.
Oddly enough, that it was not too far from where I lived.
Yeah. I don't remember what the hotel name was. It's all sort of a blur.
It's up near Kashiwa.
Yeah, that's where we were. We were in Kashiwa.
You were staying in Kashiwa, yeah.
Yeah.
So right around 2003, when you were coming, I had left Disney. I had transferred here from Florida with the Disney parks. I was working as an artist in the Disney parks, and I transferred up here. I'd worked there right out of college. Well, no, that's not true. I started while I was in college, actually. I started the summer programs. But my first job was actually as a chemist.
Really?
Yeah, for Sealed Air Corporation. I was making glue. It's okay. It's a weird story, but it's one of those things where you make a glue that goes on a film, a plastic sheeting, and they use it as a film to cover like automobile hoods in the midst of production, because you can't scratch the hood while it's going through the production line. But when you take the film off, it can't leave a residue, so it doesn't stick by normal means of what is more or less friction.
That makes sense.
It sticks through static electricity. And so that's the same thing you get like when you get a sticky film on your phone. You get a new phone or something, you take it off your smartphone. So that's what I was making. I was making the glue that goes on that. That was my first job. But that led me into studying deeper physics in university, and then studying, well, what's practical about this? Because I wanted to go into film. So I want to do some special effects, and film, special effects, and physics led me to magic, and then magic. And you kind of, I mean, you went a totally different way, but yet you studied magic, and you've worked on some films.
Yep. Yeah. I was going for children's book illustration in Boston. I wanted to be a comic artist. And so I wanted to go for comic book art. And while I was in college in 1989, my friend said, "Hey, let's go see the new Disney film, which was The Little Mermaid." And I said, I don't want to see that. I have no interest. Yeah, the princess movie. Yeah, So they said, "Come on, we're all going. Let's go." And I'm thinking, popcorn movie. That sounds great. I've got like $2 to my name. Yeah, I snuck back and saw it, I think, 5 more times.
No kidding.
Yeah, I was obsessed from then on. I bought books on animation, and the funny thing is, I had bought The Illusion of Life when I was a young kid. Yeah.
No, it's in my office. I have that book. It's a great book.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I've met a few old guys recently who think.
Yeah, okay, now wait. We have to describe that, because when we say old guys, that's an animation term that
it is. We
know, and our listeners may not know.
Well, there's the old men, the 9 old men.
Yeah, the 9 old men.
The 9 old men, 2 of which wrote that book, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnson, who animated for 40 years. They started on Snow White and worked their way up until the 70s, and then they just retired and wrote more books.
And it's basically the 12 principles of principles. 12. Come on. Like the 12 techniques, the 12 principles. I don't know what you're calling. I live in
I like principles.
Japanese works of animation. And that's Johnson, particularly Ollie Johnson thing. Okay, so you met these guys. So
I did. When I moved out, I got accepted to CalArts. I saw in the parentheses of the Making of Aladdin book, it said, blah, 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 this person went to CalArts. And I thought, all right, I guess I need to go there. So I applied. And in my 20-year-old bravado, I said, if I get accepted, then it means something and I should go. What if I hadn't gotten accepted?
Right.
It's stupid. I know people who applied 4 or 5 times, but I did get accepted, and it was the year of the earthquake. So I didn't hear until July that I had been accepted. The room where they kept the portfolios, the door had actually shifted and fused shut. Yeah.
I heard about that.
So
you told me about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't find out till July, till they were able to get the thing open and even decide if the place was structurally sound enough
to have
glass. Because the overpass that goes from one freeway to the other, the town that we live in and that has CalArts is a Y. And one freeway is here and the other freeway is that way. Well, the overpass had fallen in between the two.
Oh.
So there was some significant structural damage. And if you're looking at the map, this is Valencia. This is Northridge right here.
Right.
They're on a map, they look like they're right next to each other, and they really are. So I came out here with very few months to sort of, find my way, get an apartment and all that. But then, I had very little money, but then I got this flyer at school that said Pioneers of Animation dinner, and it was like $300 a plate.
Oh, yeah. I love those things where you're like, pay to meet the greats. I've done that, and you do, and it is good. For those out there, if you get that chance and you have the money to spend,
even if you don't, I never regretted it. I never regretted it.
The money. I never regretted it either.
I walked in the door, and I had read at that point I was obsessed, and I had read my Illusion of Life front to back, and had all the books and stuff. So when I walked in, there is Frank Thomas, Ollie Johnson, Ward Kimball, Mark Davis, and his wife Alice, all sitting around the table, and there's one empty seat.
And you just took
I did.
1-year-old bravado.
I walked up and I sat down. I asked them, I said, can I sit down? Can I sit down and talk to you? And they said, sure, young man, go ahead, have a seat. And Frank Thomas was sitting right next to me, and he says, so what's your story? I said, well, I'm going to CalArts. CalArts, whoa. And then I noticed there's a guy sitting next to me who's really grumpy. And he was doing an interview with them at that time. And they completely forgot about him and started talking to me.
Right.
Talking about Chenard. Chenard was the original school that became CalArts.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, quick thought on that. If you're an interviewer, like you and I have already interviewed a couple of folks for this.
Yeah.
And this has been really good. Matter of fact, the more I've been thinking about it and the more Joe Rogan has been talking about, it's only honest to do these long form interviews where you don't edit it. So I think, by the way, for our listeners, a few of the first episodes here will probably be edited because we had filmed and recorded them before this in the midst of the pandemic. But going on, we may do this a little bit more long form. I think it's probably better and it's more honest. But getting back to your thing, if you had been the interviewer, when you're interviewing these guys and some young artist comes up and sits down, they start focusing on him, would that not be better fodder for your story as to how these guys interview it? What in the world is this guy grumpy about?
Yeah, he was mad. You could see it. He got up with a huff and walked off, and I didn't care.
Well,
Alice invited me over to her house. Now I've been invited over to Mark Davis's house at least twice.
Right.
And I never went. Biggest mistake ever.
No, don't ever. Anybody who's listening, if you get invited anywhere, by all means, I don't care what it costs.
Just go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. The first time was then.
Yeah.
And then my wife and I, Crystal, who's also an animation director, she's amazing.
We interviewed her. She's coming up.
We interviewed her. Her and I were at the CalArts producer show, and she invited us over to the house.
Okay.
And we said, "Oh, that sounds great. We should go." And then it just never happened. So
we'll go now.
But what an amazing night! And other people, if you guys are animation historians, those of you listening, Bill Justice was there. Virgil Ross.
Virgil Ross. Tell me who. Virgil Ross.
Virgil Ross was one of the sort of quiet, unsung heroes who animated on the Looney Tunes.
I got to pull that out of my memory here.
But I mean, what an amazing evening, and it was a great way to sort of kick off my journey, and my start in this industry. So, going fast through this, I was at CalArts for 1 year, and it was the perfect year because they needed people in the industry. They just wanted someone who could hold a pencil. So they hired me at Warner Brothers and trained me on the job. So I had acting classes, sculpting classes, figure drawing. I had to produce animation tests every month and submit them. and I would get graded on them. And if I did well enough,
Now,
I
this
would
is at work and not at school.
correct. This is yeah.
Yeah, this is common. And
Yeah, this is
I'm not sure a lot of people who haven't made it into school yet or are looking to go to school don't understand that a lot of studios will hire you out of school and you never graduate.
that's correct.
Matter of fact, if you don't graduate, that's a good thing. That means you were good enough that they wanted to hire you because they want to get you before you form your own style.
Yeah, and that helped a lot. It's funny you should say that because years later, I did my own comic just because I needed to draw something that was for me.
Yeah.
Because I was always the empty vessel. I was always drawing somebody else's style. I conformed to whatever the style of the show was.
Yeah.
The first film was Space Jam.
Oh wow.
And
That's
I was an apprentice
old,
on
dude. I'm just kidding. We're the same age.
Wait, my back. Yeah.
Oh my back, my head.
You know, it's funny. It's funny because things that I learned back then have stayed with me. You know, when I work, right now I'm leaning on the back of the chair, but when I'm working, I sit without touching.
Yeah.
I keep my back upright. I keep my elbows tight, and I have my Cintiq as vertical as possible because when I animated, I kept my disc as vertical as possible because the minute I started to lean,
it puts undue stress on your lumbar, and it
yeah. So, you know, if I could keep my chin in and my elbows close, I called it T-Rex drawing. You know, I keep my arms tiny and elbows close. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I would roll with my fingers and I'd have a piece of paper in between each finger and I would watch the animation like this and then draw and roll it. And then I would take it off and hold the stack in my hand and then flip
anybody
it
who's listening, if you're an animation fan, I cannot stress enough the strength of paper and pencil. Whether you have a computer in front of you or not, learning the pencil and paper and just having it in front of you it's almost visceral. Is that the right word? Just
yes.
Get from brain to hand and out on something physical and not be digital. Like the feel of pencil on paper, there's something about it. Get it out there.
I've had this discussion before, and you know, because I have friends in the industry now that are in their 20s, and they've only ever done digital. You know, they're new to the industry, but they've only ever drawn on the computer. And they say, what's the difference? What's really the difference? And the big difference is talk to an older artist, us and older, and they see the paper, the page as a portal. You look into it like those magic eyes, and you see it on the page before you draw it.
Yes.
There's a certain kind of hypnosis that happens when you stare into it. Nowadays, Command Z.
I was talking to somebody sometime during the pandemic, and he said, yeah, you just keep your left hand on the Command Z. Oh, is the guys over at BAM Animation. And they're like, yeah, you keep your left hand on that Command Z. And I was like, you can't do that with a pencil, dude.
No, I mean, I would rather, I mean, and I've worked with some of these younger artists, and they're brilliant. They're really great. But, and I do this to an account, too, on my storyboard programs. I will be the actor first, and then I'll frame my shot.
Yes. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But what they do is they'll draw a line, Command Z, draw a line, Command Z, draw a line, and then decide, okay, that's okay. Then they move on to the next line, Command Z, next line, Command. Yeah. And so I've told some of these young guys, I said, look, scribble, draw lots of lines.
Yes.
You can always turn it light gray and draw over it.
Yes. So do you remember back in, I say, do you remember? This is way before either of us were born. But so if you watch the old Disney animations and you see it starts off with Snow White and it goes through and you get these really, really great animations. At some point, it starts to harden up a little bit. And then suddenly, bam, you just get Jungle Book and it livens right back up again. And it was the invention of the copy machine. Instead of having the artists, the original, you get your keyframe artists and their art, and then somebody laying a cell over it and re-inking it.
Yeah.
right? Instead, they just took the art and they threw it in the copy machine and copied it straight onto a cell, and then
That's
they
right.
paint that, and you don't have that loss of motion and energy. And there is something in the scribble. There's an energy in the scribble. I mean, you look at Glenn Keane's stuff, his daughter's stuff. His daughter, I mean, even his daughter has the power of the scribble.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
That's what they grew up with.
yeah, I mean, Glenn, the way he holds his pencil, it's like, or his piece of chalk or whatever he's drawing with.
Yeah.
It looks like there's energy in it. It's weird watching his hand move because it's like how are you holding it?
Well, we had somebody come through the studio, and we would give tours all the time before there was all this NDA, and matter of fact, before there was all this internet, people weren't posting things, so we would give tours. I mean, this was pre 9/11. People are just walking around and seeing what we're doing.
Right.
And this kid said, "You animate, and you draw from your shoulder. It's like you're conducting a symphony, And he said, the cleanup people, they draw with their hands.
Yeah, their wrist.
Yeah, And I said, well, they're more precise. We're going for the line of action, the flow.
Right.
The thing you were talking about, do you know the backstory of the Xeroxing? I don't know if I can say Xerox. Photocopy.
I know it or not. Our listeners want to hear it, so.
Let's tell them.
Yeah.
Because of budget, they wanted to make sure they could still keep the animation full. I mean, it was the beginning of the thinning of the herd. I don't even think they realized. But inkers were, okay, if you listeners have ever drawn on paper, paper has a tooth. It has a texture. And the pencil grips the paper, and you can feel it. There's feedback. Yeah. When you're painting on a cell with a brush, no feedback. If you've drank coffee, this is a really neat thing. Try this sometime. Have a piece of clear plastic and like a rapidograph pen or a brush. You'll see your heartbeat in the line. You can actually see it wiggle where your heartbeat was. But Ken Anderson, longtime Disney, amazing guy, worked on a lot of the Imagineering stuff too. I believe Ken Anderson worked on Haunted Mansion and Pirates and all that stuff with Mark Davis.
As you're talking, I shall look.
There you go. Ken decided that they could use this new technology to photocopy the cells, the drawings right onto the cells.
Yeah.
And he was very proud of it. And Walt hated it, which was sort of funny.
Why?
And I don't know. I think because it was scratchier. We appreciate it. We love it.
Well, Walt liked how do you say this? Walt appreciated an efficiency to everything. Well, he was essentially, more than an artist, he was a businessman.
He was a dreamer, definitely.
Yeah, and he seemed to. I didn't meet him. Now my boss at Disney, Jess Rubio, knew him. Now, and Jess had grown up as an artist in the park, like doing the art shows in front of guests, and it's cool. But that is a hard thing to do, and so he taught me caricature art, and he said that Walt would come through and he would have an economy of movement. Right? And in as much as that may do well for business, I don't know how it plays out for animation, but he would fix Jess's art. And Jess embarrassed me a number of times, like on stage working at Disney during, I think, the summer of my junior year of college. I was drawing caricatures in the park, and Jess came up and saw my art for this family, and I was drawing maybe a little too realistically, I guess. And he said, you need to simplify your line, and then told me to get up
Nice.
in front of this family and then proceeded to redraw it. And the family, I mean, which it may be
For those of you listening, that is a
go ahead.
no. I think I almost lost you there for a sec. For those of you listening, it's sort of part of the animation process that your mentor tells you to stand up and give them your seat.
Yes.
And then you stand behind them and watch them fix your stuff.
Yeah. And don't be insulted when that happens. I mean,
My very first scenes were more my mentor than me.
right. That
Because,
is not uncommon.
Yeah, I did the best I could with what I had, and then he'd say, no, let me sit down. And he would draw over it.
You know, I think there's something to be said about when
They're
you're
weird.
an artist, when you're an artist, learning to draw is as much a part of learning humility as it is. There's something to be said about going in and sharing your inner
Froze
emotion
again.
and putting it out and just like pouring out your emotion and making art. That's great. When you're making a film, when you're making art for somebody else,
That's a completely different thing.
can you hear that?
No,
This kid outside is just like going nuts.
I can't hear it.
Get outside. Dude, I'm recording.
It seems like it's happening everywhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My kids are likely to walk in this room at any moment. But there is.
I can hear it a little bit.
Somebody's gonna start crying in a minute, like big crocodile tears. School started back here a few weeks ago,
Oh, interesting.
and yeah, now of course the rate of infection has gone up a
Right?
lot.
Yeah.
Just like shot straight up, which I'm not surprised, but the thing that's odd is that it's shot up amongst like 20 and teenagers and 20-year-olds, which until now, like nobody's that young has gotten it really, or has shown. Yeah.
For those of you listening, be patient, be safe.
Yes, please.
You
Don't
know,
do anything stupid.
endure. I have friends that are saying, forget this, I'm going to the beach.
No.
And I said, well,
Well,
find a secluded beach if you're going to do that.
yeah,
you know?
right. Yeah. Go to St. John's.
Yeah. But
There are beaches here. Well, we call them beaches, but there's no sand. We get a lot of tsunami and stuff. So the wave breakers coming up here, they break it into the Bay of Tokyo, and people go out and they'll fish from that and stuff. But everybody is standing like so far apart, and we're trying. I mean, we're really low on our infection rate. But in this city here, Tokyo Disneyland is just right down the street. As a matter of fact, though my kids cannot hear it, my wife is there today. It just opened back up, and she's there. They don't know.
Yeah,
So
really?
they listen to this podcast. They're not ever going to know, but my wife is enjoying herself at Disney, which means I have to go make dinner in 1 hour.
Ours has not opened. I'm about an hour and change from Disneyland.
Yeah.
And it has not opened back up.
I don't suggest that it should. Now they've limited the number of people. They've done it by lottery here. So she was super excited to go because they've done it. You have to win the lottery to go, more or less.
That's
and
cool.
It's like 15,000 people, which sounds like a lot, but this is the busiest theme park in the world. Like our lowest day when I was working there, granted, this is like 17, 18 years ago. Our lowest number of guests per day would be 4th of July or January 1st in Florida.
Wow.
Like the number of people in Florida that went was like the least number of people we would have. So we would get so many people. It's just absolutely shocking, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it's that's okay. Japanese love character and theme parks. They love that kind of stuff.
If you guys listening get the chance
Hmm.
to come out to California, I'm from New Hampshire. I'm from a little town in, East Coast. And so when I moved out here, there was a mystique. There was, it's Hollywood. So I visited all these sites. There's a carousel in Griffith Park, which is not far from the Hollywood sign, where Walt would sit and dream about Disneyland.
Yeah.
With his daughters. And you can still go there. And if you are lucky, it's running and you can ride his favorite horse.
And sit and dream yourself.
Yep. And that sort of is a good segue to the magic. When I first moved out to California,
Right.
Friends told me about this members only exclusive club. You had to know a magician or you had to audition to get in there.
Yeah.
And one of the animators that I knew was a magician, and he got me a ticket and I got in. And again, I was hooked. I had to learn this skill. I didn't want to perform, which I did end up doing. I did end up performing, but I didn't want to. I wanted to learn the craft, and I wanted to audition. That was my goal. I wanted to audition and get in on that merit. So I learned cards and coin tricks and the combinations of the two. And
do you have a favorite? I have a lot of magic books back here. I've got Bertram on sleight of hand and stuff. Do you have a favorite card or sleight of hand, prestidigitation? Do you have a favorite?
Yes. Well, JB Bobo was my first book, which is all coin sleights.
Right.
It's a great name, JB Bobo. Obviously a pen name, but the reason that he had the pen name, I found out, is because he got a lot of his skills just as Di Vernon did, who was the card master. Di Vernon, if you look up magic, Di Vernon was considered the professor of magic. And JB Bobo and Di Vernon learned all of their craft from swindlers.
They would go out in the street and they'd watch these guys do the Monty. That's the thing where you have 3 cups and somebody would be like, if you're watching on, you guys are listening, you have no idea what we're doing, but we're like making these moves with our hands. And it's just like, and then suddenly somebody comes out with something and you're like, where'd it come from? And they would watch these card swindlers and these guys on the street who would just like make money. And Vernon is okay. So you like JB Bobo?
Di Vernon.
Yeah. Di Vernon is really good.
I didn't actually learn any routines from Di. My routine that I used for my audition was by a guy named Dean Dill, who has since passed.
Okay.
And he was this amazing guy. He looked like Hulk Hogan. He was like a truck driver. Yeah. He had the lamb chops, and the fuzzy hair, the 80s look. And he was a hair cutter. So I would go get my hair cut in Glendale, and then he and I would do magic together in the barbershop.
What a way to draw customers, man.
Yep. So I would go in for a haircut and come out with magic secrets. And he had a routine called the Matrix, which was you'd put 4 coins down, cover them with cards, and then very fairly lift the cards, and the coins would transport. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a kid here in Japan right now who's doing a really good version of that.
Yeah, there's been some amazing developments in that.
Yeah, you and I were looking at something on Facebook. I think we were commenting on somebody who was clearly using a table.
Yeah,
that it was so well done. Yeah. Matter of fact, before I got on the phone with you right now, I was talking to my teacher, the guy who introduced me to magic, and his name is Alex. Yeah, he only has one name. Nobody knows his last name. But Alex, and he's named himself after the great Alexander. But he's Japanese. And when I came in 2000, we were at a party, and we just, we were both at this guy's birthday party, and he was doing something silly. He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna make this pencil disappear," and whoa, what happened? My mind was blown. I had liked magic before that. And I had studied a little bit before that, as in like more along the lines of physics and what you could do with physics, because was it Arthur C. Clarke? Magic is simply a technology that is so advanced that
Significantly advanced enough,
it looks like magic to
right?
So
Yeah.
I liked the physics and the kind of illusion side of it. And then I met this guy Alex, and he was a member. He still is a member. I just talked to him on the phone a minute ago. For the Magic Castle, and he introduced me to the Magic Castle. And I mean, man, that is a whole nother world of. There's a level of art, and what does Snape say? Subtle science.
Yeah.
Right. Alan Rickman, man, I miss that guy.
Oh, well, we were just watching that exact scene tonight because we finally finished. We finished the first book for my son.
Oh yeah.
And he was begging to watch the first movie. And so that line came up tonight.
My twins are reading that now. They're 9, and I'm trying to get them into English, and so they're reading Harry Potter. And my eldest, who's 12, she's on book 5, and so I was reading it with her, but she's slow. So
The Goblet of Fire, right?
Yeah. No, the
Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah,
The Half-Blood Prince.
Yeah, she's on Order of the Phoenix, and I just finished the Deathly Hallows. So read it all again, and it's all fun and stuff. But we got the illustrated version.
Yeah, we do too.
Really, I think are they on? Did they do 4 yet?
I don't know.
So they have 1 through 3, and it's like this beautifully illustrated, and it's not like the books or it's not like the movies, because I do like the production design, which I do a lot of now. I'm a production designer now for the last 10 years or so. Yeah, I guess we need to talk about what we actually do. But
we're getting there.
We'll get there. Whatever.
Speaking of that, in that first book, that illustrated book is a version the illustrators take on Diagon Alley, and it's so good. It's so beautiful. I was telling my wife Crystal, I said I want to make a Christmas Village.
I'm going to make a book nook of it. That's funny.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
I want to make a book nook of that.
That would be great. Yeah, because I love the look of that Diagon Alley.
Really nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
How are you going to do it? So,
well,
because I'm a foam guy. I'm foam.
I like foam. I like foam and wood and things like that. So it's very easy for me to mock it up that way.
Right.
But I just got 500 by 500 by 500 3D printer.
Yeah.
So I'm tempted to try to build them, CAD/ZBrush.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not cheating.
Nope.
Philip Robinson. Philip and I were talking about that the other day. We're like, is it cheating? This is last month or so. We're like, is it cheating? I don't know. I don't think it's cheating, because I'd done a Baby Yoda in clay.
Right. Yeah. Which is fantastic.
Oh, thank you. This Baby Yoda, if anybody's watching,
He's looking at me.
Yeah, this one is the clay version, and you can go to the YouTube channel and I'll show you how to sculpt him. But that's the clay version, and then I did a ZBrush digital version that I then 3D printed and cast in silicone. He's got floppy little ears and stuff. I still can't send it anywhere.
Really?
Just as a kind of an aside, Japan has prioritized its shipping. I can't send anything other than a letter. Like to file our taxes, we had to send like a document form to the States, and it took more than 2 months to get there. I can't send a package of stuff. This 3D printed and then cast and formed Baby Yoda is a gift. I made 2 of them. One is going to Ted Haynes, that's
one of
our next show.
Our first.
That's right.
Reviews?
That's right. He's our next show, and then there's one more. It's going to Jean Favreau, and Well, I mean, actually, I think you're closer to him than I am. I just
Send it here, and I swear it will get to him.
nice try, buddy. Nice try. Matter of fact, I probably could do another casting and send it to you, but yeah, I've still got the mold.
Well, coming back, I mean, I think you and I both saw the. Well, I mean, and having years to germinate on this, people say, "Well, animation, magic, what do those have in common?" And I was just talking to someone recently. I said, with magic, if somebody sees your craft, it breaks the illusion and it stops being magic. And same thing with animation. The drawings have to be so solid and sincere and emotive that you don't see the drawings. They become characters. They become
you just
alive.
lose yourself into them. Yeah.
Yeah. But if all of a sudden the character's eyes aren't focused or their pose feels awkward,
Yep.
you know, this is no bash on anything Disney, for those of you listening.
No, it's not Disney at all. South Park.
Yeah, well, when Brave came out, stunning film, beautiful film.
One of my favorites.
And I found myself going, wow, look how beautiful her hair is. Her hair is stunning. It's beautiful. I shouldn't be looking at her hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. But I mean, they made it so beautiful that I was pulled out of it because it was beautiful, you know. So I guess that's not a bad thing.
That's the thing. There's a really, really good YouTube channel called Indie Mogul. Now, Indie for years had done just various stuff that was specifically meant for the indie film guy, like the guy who wants to make some home movies. He wants to do something indie. Now, recently, I think they've really ratcheted it up about 12 notches because the guy who's doing it now, they hired and said, we want you to do some interviews, do some great interviews with some industry folk and teach people what it takes to make a film, not just your home movie stuff, but to move into industry standard things. I mean, I've worked on industry films. You've worked on industry films. My last one was The Brighton Miracle, which is still an independent film per se, but it was about the 2015 rugby game in Japan, how Japan beat South Africa, and that was they called it it was played in Brighton, England, so they called it the Brighton Miracle. So Tim Morrison played Eddie Jones. Tim Morrison, if anybody's listening, there's Star Wars fans, that's the guy that's Jango Fett. At any rate, that all being said, on Indie Mogul, they are talking about what it takes. Shoot, what were we saying?
You were saying like, and I guess sort of piggybacking on what you were saying, it's now possible for people to make high quality film at home.
Yes, and
so,
you can do high quality stuff at home, but he was, man, can we rewind this and see what we're talking about?
You were saying that, yeah, they amped it up to the point where, I'm seeing the camera.
They amped it up where you can really learn and do a lot of good stuff on there. And hang on a second. Before that, we were talking about, I'm going to have to edit this out. I'm making a note. No editing, not happening.
Well, you had said that they had started to really make filmmaking accessible to everybody.
Right. Yeah.
They had hired someone to.
So because they hired this guy to show people what it meant to be a grip. You know, what does it mean to be a lighting artist? What does it mean to be a cinematographer? How do you block? How do you Cinefix has a great site about this. Every Frame of Painting has.
Love that one. And he stopped making those?
I know. Tony, what's up with that guy? Come on, man. Start making
fantastic. You know, I mean, if you can
channel easily. I lost you.
I'm from him, so
I lost you. Dang it.
We yeah, I know.
Oh wait, you're back.
We froze. I said if we can make a shout out to him, that, you know, all of us filmmakers just absorbed and really enjoyed everything that he was saying.
Yes.
And you know, I think we all got better for it.
We really did. So he reminded, like, I remember film school quite well, and yet you go out and you start doing your job and you have to learn so much on the job
Oh, constantly. Yeah.
constantly that you forget what you learned in school. And watching his stuff is like going back to school and going, right, yeah, I remember that bit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we started talking about him because I was talking about Tim and how Tim Ware Morrison, how he's at.
Oh yeah.
And what did I go into Tim about?
You guys were on the Brighton
Bright Miracle.
Miracle, right?
Bright Miracle. We got to that because that's what I was doing right now. But you and I were both in film. We had worked on films, but film had.
We'll get there.
Yeah. Well, hey, this is all live.
Well, okay. So let's steer it back to. I mean, you know, we're both under NDAs constantly, but what are you doing now?
Okay.
Froze again.
Froze again. You asked what we were doing now.
Yeah, I mean, I said we're both under NDAs constantly.
Right. Constantly. NDA, if anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's a non-disclosure agreement. So that means you can't talk about what you're working on.
Right.
Unfortunately, that also means you cannot share the images of things that you have sometimes worked on. So, for instance, I may have worked on a production, and yet I cannot put it on my portfolio because
For years, yeah.
It is not my material. And
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, I worked on this. And they're like, well, where is it in your portfolio? And I'm like, I can't show it. And they're like, and if a client comes to you and says, what do you mean you can't show it? Then they don't know what they're talking about. If a client comes to you and says, well, why can't you show me this? And they don't show you that bit of understanding. I mean, now it's one thing to have come people and lie to you and say, yeah, I worked on something when you clearly didn't. That's
Right.
And so they're trying
Which happens. It does
it happens a lot. And so they're trying to kind of weed those people out.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if somebody comes to you and says, well, I mean, wait, and you just say, in that case, you just say, listen, you just call my supervisor, and they'll, you know, I've worked on this, and that's fine. And they'll you can usually get them to recommend your work or something. On the other hand, you can't always show what you've been working on. So that being aside, we're both in NDAs, but most of my work now is either in branding, which is that's the bread and butter of, that's a staple item, especially in these times. So in the midst of the pandemic, branding has kept me alive. Now what
does that mean? Tell us what that means.
Usually that means like making a logo for somebody, but
okay.
that is not just logos, because you can go on some website and find a $200 or $300 logo. That's not exactly what branding is. That's making a logo for somebody. You can get a cheap logo for something, that's fine. But if you get a company that is branded, it can run anywhere from, nothing to $25,000, sometimes more.
I mean, you're in essence creating immediate recognition for them.
That is right. You're creating a personality. You're creating a face for the company that, when people buy a product, they don't go and buy something because they think the product is good for the most part. Now, that's not always true. Of course, you're going to buy Coca-Cola because you like it better than Pepsi or whatever. But, you may have a favorite brand of shoe, and that may be because it feels better on your foot. But a lot of times, a lot of people buy things that exemplify who they are. Gary Hurstwitz's movie Objectified is a very good piece of material that I suggest to everybody go rent that, watch that. It's a documentary, but it's a documentary on the making of products.
Hmm.
What that means to make a product, what it means to design, create, and sell a product. And it sounds a little boring. Boy, it is not. Now, granted, this is the guy who made a whole movie off of the font Helvetica. And that's a great movie.
Sorry.
Oh, did I lose you?
Just for a sec.
Anyway, I'm talking about Gary Hirschwitz's movie, The Objectified.
Okay.
And
I haven't seen that. I'll have to check it out.
it's really good. Now, granted, you kind of have to like documentaries, but it's an exciting documentary. It is not What We Do in the Shadows. It's not, anything crazy, or it's not a mockumentary. It is a real documentary, but it is a documentary on a more ethereal subject, the making of objects and products, than it is on a specific. So it's very good. But branding a lot of times means to take the philosophy and the thesis statement of a company and to turn it into a personality. And you're not just making an image or a mark or something. You are making everything from that image and mark to the tagline, to how people will see it, to how it is portrayed and bled into society, how people will react with it. You're making a brand book, which means logo guidelines. You're making, you may have to design a font that is what people will use on the computer for intra-company mail.
Wow.
It can be extensive.
Well, if you think about that curly C and that the swirls that are used for Coca-Cola, or the Walt Disney font, we've seen, it's instantly recognizable.
It is, but there is meaning behind that font. So it is not Walt's real signature.
Right.
Not at all. But it is reminiscent of it. But it also has the golden ratio within the font itself. If you don't know what the golden ratio is, look it up. You can look up Fibonacci's number.
The golden mean, sometimes called.
Yep. And it is signified in math and design with the Greek sign phi, and it looks like the Y in Disney. Now the emoji, that was Japanese. The capital letter is like the D, and it's also shows up in the circle that goes above the I in the signature, like the D-I, and then the little circle that goes above it looks like the Greek letter. And the whole logo is just, somebody go look it up on Google. I'm going to look it up right now. The golden ratio in Disney logo. There it is. Man, that's first thing that pops up.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Phi. Yeah.
Phi. Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And asking me, and I'm like, I'm in Phi Mu Alpha. Okay. Yes. Hey, sweetie, what's up? Mm-hmm. 宿題意味わかんない。持ってきて。うん。じゃあ持ってきて。絵を描きたい。いいよ。いいよ。うん。じゃあ待ってて。シェアしないといけないから。ダメ？何やってんの？Are you overwhelmed with ennui? You're overwhelmed with ennui. So if you don't know about your homework, bring it here and I'll answer your questions. If you just want to draw, you've got to share it with your sister. Okay? Got it? Good. Oh, it's cute. Okay. All right. Off you go. Let me finish.
All right. Well, let's Mine are asleep. Mine are.
Yours
I mean,
are,
for those of you listening, this is sort of a amazingly international podcast. I'm in Southern California, and you
I'm in
are
Tokyo.
in. That's right.
I'm in Urayasu, which is a stone's throw from Tokyo. I could literally stand on
Wow.
one side of the bridge and throw it over into Tokyo. But Tokyo Disneyland is here. Sorry. I don't know if
Not
we
at all.
cut that out or not.
Yeah.
So, yeah, phi is the signifier for the golden ratio, which is used a lot in
Yeah, it's
logos and
it's the spiral of the
yeah, you get an
of the
nautilus
seashell.
shell. Yeah,
You
you
know,
get a nautilus shell.
the way that a sunflower unfolds. I mean,
Right.
it's
So phi, or the golden ratio, Fibonacci's number is, you can kind of like when you add up something, you say 0 plus 0 is 0. And then you just add a 1 to it. You say, well, 0 plus 1 is 1. And then you add another one. You say, well, 0 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 3 is 5. Okay,
right.
well, the 3 plus 5. And so you keep going off the last, what's the last number? So 2 plus 3 is 5, and then the 3 and the so well, that's the 3 and the 5 is 8. Well, the 5 and the 8 is 13. The 8 and the 13 is 21, and it just keeps going. And if you make a square grid like that, you come out with a perfect spiral. And it shows up in math and in nature and in art and in everything so often that it is, oddly enough, there have been like theological papers written on this. Why does this show
Oh
up?
yeah.
It's
And if you want to be an artist, you need to learn this.
yes, by
When
all
we,
means.
if you guys are watching this, I'm dead center in the screen right now.
Yeah.
And because I'm talking to you, but if this was a movie, I would want to be here because I'm on the third. I'm in that perfect space, and I'm creating a negative space here that draws the eye.
That's right.
If I'm too far over, then this is not the golden mean. I'm too far over to one side, and there's too much negative space.
That's right. We would be
So,
facing each other like this.
Right. Right. Yeah.
American paper is like letter and legal paper. International papers go by A and B. And so you have like A4, A5, A6. A big poster size would be A1 or B0. And then you have B1, which is size. And you get down to like B5, which is about a little smaller than letter size. But those are like golden ratioed, the length and the width. If you don't know this as a designer, you miss out on so much stuff.
As soon as you figure it out, you
Lisa
go.
is based off of this stuff, man.
Well, okay. Look at sitting right here. It's pervasive. If you look at the screen from this corner down to here, and the ratio to this corner over here, there's a reason it's that shape. There's a reason this thing is this shape.
Yes.
Why isn't it wider?
Yeah. Why isn't it taller? Why doesn't it fit this way? Yeah. It's
Because-
not because it fits in your back pocket like that.
The other one that people showed me, this, my wife laughs at me because I do this a lot. I say, look at your finger. And unless you have strange fingers, because some people do, from the top digit to the first knuckle is the golden ratio to the next knuckle.
Yeah, that is exactly.
Yeah. And then the fingers to the hand is the golden ratio. And then the hand to the forearm.
Which
and
is
so
interesting
on.
because your forearm from here, from your elbow to your wrist, is the same size as your foot.
Okay.
I love the symmetry and the repetition of, it really is. I mean, like I think I'm too old to probably stretch that out. But
Right.
oh, there it is, right there. Ow. Oh, all the blood right in my. But I mean, like the size of your ear is the same length between the brow of your nose to your the brow of your eyes, and then your pupils go down the edge of your mouth, and I mean, it's all over the place, like the symmetry in nature. And so putting that back into your art that's part of what makes art not just chaos. It's not just emotion. And design is, particularly in corporate design, when you're doing branding or whatever, you are imparting information in the clearest form to someone else, right? That's what you're doing. You're making sense of chaos.
Yeah.
How do I get this information across to this person in the simplest way, where all the information is imparted?
Hmm.
And
We say oftentimes that simple is not easy.
simple is the hardest thing. Look at Mike
Yeah.
Mignola's work, the old Hellboy comics.
You froze for a sec.
Oh, did I freeze?
You're back.
Look at Mike Mignola's work, the old Hellboy comics.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, man. Oh my word. They look so simple. It's just black and white. And you're like, how did he get that information into that? The amount of thought that goes into one drawing is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Absolutely mind-boggling. Okay. All that being said.
And people say, oh, it's so simple.
Yeah. I have customers who are like, yeah, you just like to draw, and that's what you do. You go home and you draw. You just like to do that's what you do. And I'm like,
no.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we will, on this channel at some point, talk about what is creative direction, what is production design, what is art direction, what is just good listening. Like, to be a creative director, you just have to listen. And you have to ask the right questions to draw out the information that people want to impart to somebody else. A lot of times customers have no clue what they really need to tell other people. There's something in psychology called the illusion of transparency. And it usually plays out to the kind of thing of, if I'm nervous, there's a really good book I recommend called You're Not So Smart. It's a great book. It talks about those little idiosyncrasies and idiosyncrasies, I mean. But the illusion of transparency can play out kind of like, if I'm nervous about a speech, I know everybody can see how nervous I am, but they really can't. They have no idea. Now, that's one version of it. But there's also the other idea of, if I'm thinking of something, it's in my head. I can see the totality of it. Holistically, I have it just in my head. And so when I tell somebody about what I can see, because I have all of it within my view, I can convey all of the whole of this idea, and I'm telling somebody whatever, they are not looking at my whole thought process. They can really only grasp what this is. So to me, I'm like, I'm being completely transparent. My view is that you can see exactly what I'm talking about, and they can't. And so it's a miscommunication. And this miscommunication leads to a lot of society. I mean, these are like philosophical arguments that break down to what design is and what meaning is and what communication is. You're trying to get information across to somebody, and they don't really know what it is that they, first off, want to say, because it's all stuck in their head, and they assume that you kind of understand that. Like, nobody understands that. I don't have ESP, right? But what you perceive as a fact in one side, the other person may have a different a priori basis. He's looking at things from a completely different perspective and vantage point. And so it doesn't come across the same. You have to listen and ask the right questions to draw out the information that somebody needs to get in order to impart that information to somebody else. And then as a designer, you have to take that and put it into a form that is graphically appealing and yet instructive, and also
Froze for a sec.
oh man, I keep
It's okay.
Wi-Fi stinks. You know what it is because a lot of people are working from home. The internet is overwhelmed. But yeah, this design process of just getting out what the client wants and then putting it into a form that is not only conceivable and understandable, but also is interesting and has like a personality to it, because people buy stuff because they like the brand, right? they like not just the person who may be, you know, the spokesperson for said brand. You know, you might like Michael Jordan or whatever, but speaking of Space Jam, but you also like what they stand for, where their stance is. You know, are these people inclusive? Are they diverse? Are these people, do they stand for equality? I like that person, you know, and you have to show that graphically. And it's not usually just a tagline, because you have to show it in your product, in your work. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, and as a designer, you sometimes have to go back and say, like, look, I know you want to talk about this. I know you want to like tell people that you're this, but if you just say people, hey, trust me, they're not going to. Right? They're not, nobody's going to trust you if you say that. You have to show that you're trustworthy. And so if you don't show good customer service, if you don't show that your products have some, and you really have to, like, as a designer, you have to take your client to task sometimes. You have to be careful how you do that, mind you. You have to have some tact and some ability to do that, but you have to take them to task and say, you're trying to talk about like good customer service and equality and whatever else it is that they're trying to, you know, appease at the moment of social justice of whatever is being talked about, but you're not actually doing it, then it fails, right? Because otherwise you're lying. And not just lying, you're actually making a fool of the company and your work. That being said, that's a lot of my work. So we were talking about what I do for a living. I do a lot of branding. I also do a lot of production design, which means after somebody comes to me, then I figure out what it looks like graphically. And that could be for a movie or for a TV commercial or for a children's book, you know. So, I mean, we do everything. My design studio does everything from furniture to TV shows. So,
Wow. That's cool.
yeah. That's that. You?
Well, I mean, I started as an animator. So for those of you listening,
Wait. Let's go back really far, because you said you were at dinner with them and you met the old guys.
I did, yeah. And I got a chance to talk to them, and you know, they were telling me how the school was originally Chenard, which was the school that they had come from. And those of you who don't know, Cal Arts was a school that was funded and built by Walt.
He wanted to have a place where students could learn to do what he wanted them to do.
Yeah, and it's much more than that now. It's acting and dance and design, experimental animation, character animation. It's a wonderful mix. But yeah, so started off from there. I went onto Space Jam, and then Quest for Camelot was their first official movie, which was horrible.
I was going to say, I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, it became sort of a Disney clone. It came out the same year as Mulan, and Mulan kicked its butt.
Is it that old?
Wow. Yeah. Because I remember when Mulan came out, we were all like, "Well, that's how it should have happened."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you did Iron Giant.
Iron Giant. Yeah, I was a sequence animator on Iron Giant. They gave me the sequence with the hunters and the dead deer, and you know, he's explaining to the giant that you know, killing is bad.
Kill, right?
Yeah. It's funny how moments happen that change the course of things. Because I was in the producer's office one day, and she says, "Yeah, we have the giant sleeping, and while he's sleeping, a plane flies over, and a thing pops out of his arm and tracks the plane and goes back in. And Hogarth notices this." She said, "It's not working." And so, you know, I'm in my 20s and I'm all excited, and I said, "Oh, it'd be great if his eyes iris in and turn red and he shakes it off."
Yeah.
And I said, "Bye," and I left, and the next storyboard reel had that in it.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, hey.
That's my idea."
Yeah. So, you know.
I loved that scene, actually. It's funny. People don't realize how often stories change. Like somebody comes in with the script. The Incredibles changed so often that some of the artists just got like
Oh yeah.
Went on
Okay.
strike. They were like,
For those of you listening,
goes.
feature animation story. When I say story is a department. They do storyboards. It's a comic book version of the movie, single panels, as few as possible to tell the story.
Yeah, if you study film, you have to study chronological art, which is more or less manga. It's
yeah.
Yeah.
The beautiful art of the comic book is that the art itself of a comic book is assembled in your mind.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have the words, you have the pictures, you read the words, you absorb the picture and develop the story in your mind.
In your head.
Yeah. When we read a book, like they're telling our kids, you read the words and then you create your own images in the
world. Yeah, in your head. Yeah.
So in film, though, especially at Disney, and this is not a dig at Disney, but
you do it well. But
they have a very organic process. They throw things up on the board, they rip them down. They put new things up, they rip them down.
And that happens. Toy Story, the story changed so many times.
So let's make it interesting for the listeners. It's been 20 years since I worked on Iron Giant. 1999 is when it was released. Same year as Tarzan.
You weren't even born. I'm telling you, you young whippersnappers. We were walking to school uphill both ways in the snow.
You could actually do that at our house. The way our house is set up, you could actually walk either direction and it would be uphill.
It's like a Monty Python skit.
Yeah, but I can tell these stories because it's been 20 years. On Iron Giant, you were talking about how the stories change. We had this one storyboard artist. I'll leave his name out. Some of you may know, or some of you can look it up. He did 2 sequences that were just absolutely brilliant. If we ever find the video of it, I would love to see it because I haven't seen it since he created it. There was a sequence that he storyboarded where Dean takes Hogarth to a strip club, and he puts him in a hat and a jacket to disguise him. takes him to the strip club, and the whole thing was drawn out. And this is 1950s, so yeah. And so the whole thing, but that informed the relationship between Dean and Hogarth, and some essence of that ended up in the final film. There was another one that I completely condoned, which was hilarious, where Hogarth said, "Killing is bad, but venison is good." And so when Hogarth wakes up the next morning, there's a pile of deer on his front porch. And so all this kind of stuff ended up being drawn or come up with and dumped.
The thing is clients want so often, you'll be asked to make a lot of stuff that never sees the light of day.
Oh yeah.
Right? I mean, the best ideas end up on the cutting room floor.
Sometimes.
And they really do.
Yeah.
But it just may not work in the whole in the whole of the thing. And so, your director or somebody, your client will come to you and say, make this. And this can be really, really demoralizing because the number of times somebody has come up and said, make this is great, do this, finish this. And you just kind of go, yeah, okay. I'll be glad to come up with that for you. It'll look like this. And they go, okay, great. And then they have it in their head and it doesn't work. It doesn't fit in the whole picture. A lot of times clients and directors do not have the vision to fulfill their vision in the way that they need in order to create the art as a whole. So they'll come up to you and say like, well, this is what we're making. This is what we want. And you'll do like 5 or 6 versions of that. And they're like, no. And they'll just go through with it. And you're talking about like story department. They put it up on the wall, they tear it down. They put it up on the wall and they tear it down. They put it up on the wall and they tear it down. Or they put it up on the wall and they go, that's great. Let's see it as a night scene. And you're like, I just painted that, man. You're like, come on. But you have to be able to redo your same art
Oh yeah,
a number of times. And
yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
it's just
And I'm constantly telling the new people coming into the industry that you have to put your heart into your work,
but
but you can't be heartbroken when
your work gets
they
done
decide it's just not right.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it'll just get,
Yeah, and it's not you they don't like. It's
yeah.
that the idea doesn't fit into the grand scheme.
And yeah, and the idea may be great. The idea may be absolutely fantastic. And there's nothing wrong with that idea. As a matter of fact, if you're really good, like say in the branding department, you keep your ideas. Always keep your ideas because
Oh
what
yeah,
doesn't work for one client may work for somebody else.
yeah,
And you just transition it over. Now that works in animation as well. You'll like draw a great sequence, and you're like, and the director's like, you know what, that doesn't work. You can find it. I mean, Disney recycles their art in so many. You can see stuff that comes in Jungle Book. It also shows up in Aristocats. It shows up in Robin Hood. I've seen art reused over and over and over. They just change it. They use the
uh,
same thing. It just goes from one like Cinderella to a fox.
oh yeah. No, I'm a huge animation geek fan forever, and the Beauty and the Beast scene where they're dancing and it's a far off shot and they're dancing in the ballroom
Yeah.
was traced and redrawn from the Sleeping Beauty
Sleeping Beauty, right?
ballroom
So
scene. Yeah.
um, that scene, as a matter of fact, they'll do it as a call out to the other artists. They do it as sometimes they do it as an homage to the artists who originally worked on it. They're
Absolutely.
like, this is art, and they want to call it out. They want to say this is what this is. Sometimes it's just lazy. Sometimes it's just you know what, this worked there. Let's do it again, and people don't even notice.
Well, the Disney had what they called the morgue. Some of you may have heard of this. They now call it the Disney Archive, which I think is a better term.
The archive,
Uh, yeah,
much better.
which still exists. A friend of mine, who will forever be my friend, got me a private audience with the archivist.
We were talking about this last time we were on the phone.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she said on the phone very casually, "What do you want to see?" And it's like having a genie, And I said, "Well, I don't know." She said, "No, come on. What? You're an animator. What drawings would you want to see?" And my brain exploded, and I said, "I want to see Bambi on Ice by Frank Thomas. I want to see Milt Kahl's Merlin. I want to see the
That's a good movie. Oh my goodness.
yeah." Go back and watch the animation in that. Those guys were top notch at that point.
Can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, it's on Disney Plus. If you have,
I guess
Disney
it
Plus.
is. Yeah. Disney Plus just came out
Yes.
here, so I'll have to take a look. We'll see. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
because it's not just like the $7 here like it is in the States. I think it's double. I think it's double
Ugh.
because you have to get
Yeah.
Disney Deluxe.
So the archivist said, "Okay, come by on this day," and I
Mhm.
went with my friend. He gave me white gloves, and they opened up these
And
archival
they've got
boxes.
stripes on the back, and it's oh look at my gloves. Oh boy, I'm gonna touch all the art.
And I asked the archivist, I said, "How much can I pay you to turn around so I can hold it and flip it? The old way." And she said, "We used to let people do that, but over, half a century, the drawings are starting to break down."
Yeah.
So I was able to flip them, and at the bottom, the meatball scenes. And these drawings are stunning. They're perfectly cleaned up and beautiful and living little drawings on the page.
Meatball scenes. You're talking about Lady from the Tramp.
Lady and the Tramp, the Bella Notte
Yeah.
date scene where he pushes the meatball to her.
Yeah.
Which was almost cut. It was almost cut from the movie. And Frank Thomas fought for it. And he animated it. And they almost cut it from the movie. And so Frank, on the bottom of the pages, it says FT for Frank Thomas. So, here were his original drawings.
Right.
So, it was a wonder to be able to get to see that. But we were talking about the morgue. Originally, the archive was in the basement.
The archive.
Yeah.
The morgue, the archive.
That's what they called it. They called it the morgue. And they had it in the basement of the animation building, and you would go down there and check out scenes for reference.
Yeah.
And so, that's where that comes from. A lot of times they referenced it maybe a little too much.
Yeah, I don't know if it's too much or what, but the fact that you I see artists now. There's this guy on YouTube. I'll have to try to remember it in just a minute, but I think he's Scandinavian. He's doing his own animation. As he goes through, you can see he's watching all the old animators, all their old work. How do you incorporate this squash and stretch and things in a way that pays them homage, shows that I know what I'm talking about, because he's making his own portfolio more or less. So how do you show that you know what you're doing, pay homage to these guys, and then yet make it your own, but in the same way, make it new and interesting. And I'll have to remember this guy's name. He doesn't post very often, so it doesn't show up in my feed often enough for me to just.
Well, yeah, definitely share the link with that. But if you go back in art history, the reason I think it's called the Battle of Anghiari, and there was a amazing competition between the artists of the early Renaissance, where Michelangelo and I believe other artists like Raphael and all the Ninja Turtles and Da Vinci were all painting a version of this Battle of Anghiari on the walls, and whoever won. Leonardo's fell apart almost immediately because he was trying some new kind of paint. Anyway, the reason that we have images of it was because the other artists were copying
his work.
They were copying his work. They were studying his work by taking visual notes, by painting his work.
Right.
And I mean, people say, well, don't copy. I think there's a place for that. I think there's a place to learn. You just can't call it your own.
Well, there's something about not being able to call the art your own that people need to get used to. There is a lot of theft in the art world, but there's also, as an animator and as an artist, the fact that you work with so many other people to get a job done, that a lot of times your name gets lost. And until you get to the point where, like, you're Glenn Keane, I mean, that is a level of notoriety that, I'll be honest, 1 in 10,000 or less make. But that is okay, because nobody else could make their art if you weren't also in there. Right? So, I mean, I'm that brick in that, pyramid, but the pyramid would fall without all the bricks in it. So there is something to be said for just, hey, look, I did my job. I had to redo it 6 times. Doesn't matter. My name didn't get called out. I'm not, the Don Juan of the animations. That's fine. That's fine. Love your work for the work. I do this because I love it. I love drawing, and I love drawing. Like, somebody called, this is last year. No, sorry, this is 2 years ago. It's 2020 now. Somebody called and said, we want a character, and this is back to branding. But, branding is the bread and butter, but it really isn't what I love to do. And they said, but we want this character for our business. And we want an animation with him. And I was like, ooh, thanks. Yeah, thanks. And so, I mean, we got to do this whole, animated cartoon of a commercial.
It's awesome.
And it just takes you back, and you're kind of like, that's great. The thing is with this is what I was talking about before. This is what I was going to say before. The thing with being an animator, the thing with being a production designer, you don't get your work noticed. And that is perfectly okay. As a matter of fact, what I was going to say before about the production design and the thing with Indie Mogul, they had interviewed a production designer, and he said, yeah, thanks for not noticing my work, is that it fits so well into the background and into the story that it makes it real, and you don't notice it. Because if you notice it, then it's been pulled out. It pulls you out of the experience. And you
It's like we
just
said with Merida's hair, yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
right. Or you were talking about the eyes. His eyes are wonky, and I said, yeah, South Park. And you get drawn out of the experience of being drawn into this world. And the same thing in branding too. Somebody should see, right? Paul Rand does these fantastic designs, but I look at it and I go, oh, that's really good design work. You've lost. I mean, that's great. It's a great compliment. Yeah, it's great design work, but you shouldn't be looking at the brand design. You should be going, yeah, I want that product.
Right.
I trust that product. Oh, that's my friend. I want that, right? I mean, Bob, on I Like to Make Stuff. I mean, that's a level of finish. It's not the best logo in the world. It's really darn good for a YouTuber, and it says exactly what he does. I like to make stuff. And you look at it and you go, I can't wait to watch that episode. You don't go, what a fantastic logo. But it just looks really good and finished. And it does its job with honor and respect, and it does it quietly. And it doesn't kind of go, hey, look at me, I'm this great thing. And if you do that as an animator, if you like overdo your work, it's hard to work with you as an animator, but it's also hard to like work with you. Other artists have to work with you in a group, and you kind of look at it and you go, this guy's work is like, it's like melodrama. Does that make any sense? It's like overacting. As an animator, you're an actor, right?
Yeah. Yes.
You're an actor. You're primarily an actor.
Yeah.
And so if you animate something and you overact and you overdo it, it doesn't fit into the rest of the story. And so your art director's gonna be like, no, cut it.
Well, it's funny that myself included, a lot of people move out here. They were the best artist in their town, and they move to LA and they want to be an animator, and then they sort of feel defeated because the drawings are like notes on a keyboard. You hit one note, you go, that sounds great.
Great note.
But it has to go together. It has to flow. We jokingly say it has to be fourth dimensional, Marty. It has to have. It has to have time.
Yeah.
It has to have content. I was telling someone recently. I said, the drawings have to have a flow and an appeal, but they have to have emotional content.
Yes, that's the thing that people either miss or they hit too much of.
Yeah.
Right. There is, if you look at a Sargent painting, the emotional content that's there it's really there. It's heavy. It's impactful. It hits you, but it is not hit you over the head, right? It's not smack you in the head with a mallet kind of thing. It is art that evokes something else. And when you're doing an animation, or if you're coming up with, if you're sculpting, or if you are making a character for a movie and it stands out too much, or it doesn't carry its own weight, you're going to have to redo it. And I remember coming to Tokyo, and this is like the largest city in the world. Arguably, maybe. I don't know. But I was good where I came from. You come here and it's like the superlative game. There's always somebody better. There's always somebody better. And you have to learn how to play in that orchestra. You have to learn that one note has to play and everything else. Oh, yeah. And if you're not up to that level, strive for it.
Yeah.
Work for it. And you can get there. You can get there. You can learn anything.
Well, as scary as it is, putting yourself into that place. One of my mentors said that growth happens when you embrace the discomfort.
Yes, that is exactly.
And if you stay. One of my animation mentors left Warner Brothers, went to DreamWorks because he knew that the level there was above him, and he was really good. Went on to be
where it was.
Yeah, and so when he went there, he flourished, and he learned from the people that were better than him, and his art came up.
Here's the funny thing about art. It's not just art though. It's everything that you put your mind to. If you constantly try to be the best at what you are, you may be doing well. But if you're constantly trying to be the best one in your area, you're gonna fail. And I don't mean that as in like you shouldn't strive to be the best you. It's just that if you're not surrounded by people who are better than you, then you are not going to learn. And the funny thing is if you're a student and you're not surrounded by good teachers, you're clearly not going to learn. But if you're a successful teacher or if you're a manager, Steve Jobs said, the reason I'm succeeding is because I'm constantly I think this is Steve Jobs, maybe I'm wrong. I'm constantly hiring people who are better than I am. Right? It doesn't matter if you're the lowest guy on the rung or the highest guy on the rung. You want to surround yourself with people who are better than you.
Yep.
And I know Walt Disney did this because he wasn't the best animator. He wasn't. Oddly enough, he wasn't the best animator. But he knew art, and he would look at it and he'd say, I want this guy on my team. I want to work with this guy. And he would encourage these guys to flourish, and he would flourish. And so the company flourished. And that is really, that's what I was talking about before when I was saying you really need to humble yourself, because humbling yourself and saying, I can learn from anybody around me is,
I mean, that's a good place to come around to, because for us, we see the genius in all these different people and their different disciplines.
And different disciplines and
yeah.
You
know, for me, one of my martial arts teachers said, if you had 15 minutes with Einstein, how would that conversation go?
You don't want to. Okay, go ahead.
And so I made this face, you know, I'm scrunching up my forehead, and I said to my teacher, I said, I don't know enough about astrophysics or the Planck scale, and that's about all I know. And he goes, exactly. It would be a trite conversation because you don't have the vocabulary that he uses. For that to be a meaningful conversation, you'd have to start with the vocabulary. If we're learning how to solder, or we're learning how to do woodworking or puppet building or whatever, you start learning the vocabulary.
Yes.
And then that grows into learning who the influential people are in that industry. You know, I didn't mean to be a puppet builder, but I took the class on Stan Winston. You and I are both fans and students of.
Yep.
Guys, if you want to go and learn amazing stuff, go to the Stan Winston School. No. This is not sponsored by.
Not sponsored by them, though we do know them, and they would be very glad to have this. We both studied at Stan Winston, and I know there's a lot of information out on the internet that's there for free. Get it professionally. There's a reason these guys are professionals. Do it. And the next person on the show is Ted Haynes, who we'll talk about that then too. But you took the puppet from BJ.
Yeah, BJ Geyer was my puppet teacher. I found out, results are atypical, but I found out he lived in the same town as me. Ran into him. I swear I wasn't stalking him, but I ran into him at Home Depot. And he and I hit it off, and we started just, designing and building puppets together. And, all these years later, still designing things and building things.
And there it is.
Yeah.
And, how'd the pumpkins turn out?
Still working on them. They're in the design phase.
Okay.
So now that I have a printer that's big enough, I can print them out.
Indeed, you can. Matter of fact, I want to make use of that printer. The biggest one I have is 30 by 40. So
it's exciting. I haven't even had a chance to set it up because I'm doing talking about what we're doing right now. I'm currently working on Disenchantment for Netflix, which is the Matt Groening medieval show, which is a lot of fun. I think it's a couple seasons in.
If you guys don't know who Matt Groening is, that's the guy who did School is Hell, The Simpsons, and Futurama.
Yep.
So,
and Crystal and I, my wife and I, were both on Futurama.
Yes.
And then she got her directorial
Good
debut.
news, everybody.
She got her directorial debut on the Simpsons movie.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, yeah. She was a sequence director on that.
Okay.
And then I was the AD on one of the DVD movies for Futurama. So we've been all over that stuff.
Derek? I don't know what an AD is.
AD, assistant director. Right?
Yep.
And if you can search it online and you can find out how to draw Zoidberg by me, which is really silly. I look very awkward as I'm trying to teach people how to draw Zoidberg. Right?
Is this a personal YouTube thing, or is this?
No, they filmed it and put it on as an extra on the DVD.
Is this on YouTube?
Yep.
I'm looking this up now.
If you look it up, it
pops right up, dude.
Oh yeah.
It pops right up. Oh, that's hilarious.
Connected to that is another version where Rich Moore, who went on to direct Wreck-It Ralph and Frozen and stuff like that.
Right.
Rich Moore is a brilliant guy, but he's just innately funny. And so instead, I'm just sitting there talking, blah, 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 drawing, Rich comes up with this whole skit where he's got Crystal being super grumpy, and he calls her in on the phone, and she comes in, and she's all pissed off, and I'm with her, and hilarity ensues.
Hilarity ensues.
Yeah.
There is they all lied to me. That's the YouTube channel. How to Draw Zoidberg, Leela at Bender. Excerpt from the special features of Bender's game. Derek Thompson of Rough Draft Studios shows us how to draw Zoidberg.
Yep.
That's great. Yeah, I used to do the this is how we draw. Every single Disney character starts off with one basic, simple geometric shape. Can anyone tell me what that shape might be? That's right. And you'd, like, on our breaks, we'd sit in the back of the audience and go, like, a dodecahedron. Like, shut up, man. I'm trying to do my job.
Yeah.
That's right, son. It's a circle. Yeah.
Well, on Bender's game, one of the funny things, you know how things get recycled? I apologize if there's children listening, but it's a technical term, so we can say
Cover your ears. Yeah. With headphones.
And when I was working on regular Futurama, I was doing character layout, which is animation poses, animation key posing. It wasn't storyboarding. We were doing the key poses and fully animating stuff at times. We'll tell the story in a sec.
No, go ahead. What? 大きな声で。あと5分。55分にバス乗るって。あと15分ぐらいに着くよ。はい、行って。はい、やだ。つまんないのあ、やだ、それはね。ダメだ。
Just hurry up, Dad.
Yeah.
Well, it's late here, too. It's like 1 o'clock here, too. I need to get to bed.
Oh, good grief, man. I'm sorry. Yeah,
that's okay. It's my pleasure. But no, we were on
Zoidberg and
right. So funny story, and people like the inside stories. So I'm working at my desk, and one of the timer guys comes over, and I apologize. He was Russian. I believe he was Russian. He had a thick accent. And he comes over and he says, Derek, I have a question. I said, okay. He goes, is Zoidberg, I'm timing him. I should wiggle his testicles on his face. And I said, 10 tentacles, Mark, 10. He goes, that's what I said, testicles, his testicles, you wiggle them, right? And so I'm crying, laughing. And he goes, what's so funny? I said,
never mind, man.
Yes, he should. So we used to tell that story all the time. And then when it came to Bender's game, spoilers, Zoidberg's head comes off and he walks on his tentacles. And at one point he turns to Fry and he says, hey, Fry, grab my testicle. and Fry goes, no, thanks, I'm good. No.
This is a call out to Mark.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always love that Disney would do like the craziest stuff in there, and you're like, who's the doctor that made Stitch? 626. Not Pumbaa.
I forget the names. I haven't seen that movie in a while.
Yeah. Why does this guy have a Russian accent? It's like, I did not teach him to say that. Stereotypical stuff. I
Yeah.
love you, Disney. Always good for the stereotypes.
Well,
Ed, nobody here should be a stereotypical designer, animator, magician, anything else.
no. But I mean, as sort of a way to wrap this up, I mean,
Yeah.
what we do and what we're encouraging others to do is, especially in this, we really are in a new renaissance where we have access to people all over the world. You want to surround yourself with people that are better than you? Go on YouTube. If you want to learn to do an ollie on a skateboard, if you want to learn how to do fine Japanese pottery, you can
Information is out there. Yes.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan said the other day, not the other day, this is from last year or something. He and Jordan Peterson were talking about how the spoken word, i.e. that of YouTube and podcasts and stuff, is now as important, if not more so, than the Gutenberg printing press was, because you were suddenly information, and not just like, Wikipedia, but like information straight from sources is available to people, and they can partake in this community that can be made.
Yeah.
And it's on a level, it really is a renaissance. It is.
Amazing.
Go and study it, whatever it may be, whatever
Yeah.
you want to do, it's out there. And whatever it is, hopefully we'll have somebody on here who personifies it, whether it's.
And we're looking at talking to we're looking at talking to musicians and filmmakers and makers and crafters and
seamstress.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have friends who make parts for musical instruments. I want to get him on here. Eric Nugent. That dude's a wizard.
I have a luthier that's local here that I got my violin from. And he's amazing, and I would love to talk to him. Just because the alchemistry that goes into.
I love that, the alchemistry.
Yeah, because it is. There's mythos to what goes into the precious metals or precious gems that are ground up and put into the varnishes, and the rings on the trees, that they use trees that were from the Ice Age because the rings were tighter.
Oh my.
Yeah. So I mean,
that's crazy.
I want my tombstone to have a list of things, and then at the bottom I want it to say "See other side."
The other side. There is. Oh, that means my wife's coming home in a minute. There's something I wanted to do real quick. No idea why I did this. Just as we get ready to wrap up and leave, Derek, what is your favorite movie? And don't answer just yet.
Okay.
Describe it to us in the most boring.
Oh, I've seen this challenge.
Yeah.
Boy goes on a date with his mother.
Back to the Future.
Yep.
That's almost too exciting. You're like, oh, dude.
And you remember that they didn't get that movie approved. They pitched it to Disney, and Disney rejected it outright because this scene with his mom. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. They're my two favorites. A friend of mine, Catherine Flocken, who's a silhouette artist. I'm gonna try to get her on here at some point.
Oh.
She said, 9 men walk and walk to take jewelry back to where it was made. And I was like, what in the world are you talking? Oh, Lord of the Rings. Okay. I couldn't believe I missed
great.
that. Yeah.
That's
and then
great.
Another friend of mine said, the FBI asks a teacher to find a box, and then they put it in a warehouse.
That's great.
I was like, and then mine was, okay, so mine is a farm boy learns how to stack rocks while discovering that enemy general is his father. Meanwhile, his best friend becomes a wall decoration.
I don't know which one that is.
Farm boy learns how to stack rocks while discovering that the enemy
Oh, yeah.
general is his
Right,
father.
right.
His best friend gets turned into a wall decoration. That's it, right there on your shirt. Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, that is one of my favorites. Yeah.
So that was fun. Everybody go check out They All Lied to Me, How to Draw Zoidberg with Derek Thompson of Rough
Well,
Drafts.
and one of the things we ask all of our guests is, where can people find them? Obviously, I'm on Facebook, and I love talking shop with people. I love interacting with people and,
Same.
creating that bigger web. But you can also go and see my stuff on derekleethompson.com.
Yep. And I'm at James-Wright, as in the Wright brothers, WRIGHT, .design. And we're both on Facebook. This podcast, we want to focus on art, on not just like art in general, but any kind of art and creativity. We want to focus on what is capable within the human spirit and stuff. We are not going to be talking politics and religion and social things of the day. Those may come up, but in as much as possible, if those helped form your art, that's great. We're not going to be focusing on those. So if that's what you're here for,
it'll be a whole different kind of drama.
That is a whole different kind of drama. That really is. That being said, Derek, it's excellent talking to you.
Pleasure, always.
Yeah, look forward to many more interviews coming up. We have Ted Haynes, fabricator, who has worked on The Tick and a number of movies. We have Takayuki Sato, motion graphics artist, did Captain Marvel, a number of other things. We have Bruce Mitchell, sculptor, coming on. BJ may be coming on at some point.
Yeah, he agreed to do it. We have confirmation from several others, but we'll keep those for now.
Yeah, we should keep
Right
those
to the
on.
best,
Maybe go to the people that we've already done, and then your wife.
Yep.
Your wife, your better half, Crystal.
That's right.
Great, and look forward to some great discussions here on out. A smart 2 hours there, buddy.
Yeah, if we can encourage people to dream and dig and find things that they never thought were possible that they can do,
yes,
then we've done what we wanted to.
The thing is the people, they're there. Everybody has that. Everybody has that.
Absolutely.
And it's not like if you could just pick yourself up by your bootstraps. It's there. It is.
This is sort of Pollyanna. I had a friend of mine recently accuse me. He says, well, you work at Disney, so I understand where you're coming from. You live in a fantasy world. I said, but I'm happily there. I live happily in that place. But I really believe that every single person has a genius, and they just have to discover it.
Yes. Sir Ken Robinson gave a fantastic talk on TED Talks, the TED Talks. And he's like, human intelligence is vast. It is so deep that we cannot even begin to understand it. What people are capable of. And it is there. Doesn't matter if you don't think I don't have any talent or I don't have a chance of getting out there. Well, if I had this or that, you can take it. Doesn't matter what it is. You take what's in your head. You put it out on the paper, work it out, write down what you want to do, how to get there, aim for that goal. If you need help, reach out. We're here. There's massive community out there of artists and just other inspiration. So, I mean, neither Derek nor I got here by ourselves.
No,
we didn't. But
no.
And it would be foolish to say it's all because of my talent, because it is not.
but that grows.
It
You
really
know,
does. And your dreams will change as well.
yeah, absolutely. And they've shown, when we were kids, they said, "Oh, here's your IQ," and now they said, "Well, okay, but that's formed at this point by the time you're 3." And then they said, "Oh, no. Well, it still keeps going till you're 6." And now they find out that it's
You
a
don't start
plastic
learning
thing.
until you die.
Yeah, it's a very plastic thing. Your brain can turn to glial cells, which is basically fat, or you can continue to create connections between the two hemispheres and
Yes.
grow that tissue, add new wrinkles.
That is right.
Not to get too ephemeral, not getting into different beliefs and stuff, but I really found solace in Einstein's quote where he said that, why would the human brain catalog all of these finite, minute little details just to let them go at the end?
Yeah. Excellent.
All right.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Look forward to next time.
Till then, keep dreaming.
Amen. Thanks,
All right.
brother.
I'll talk to you later.
Bye, everybody.